All right, so this is Ken. We're gonna change the world in 10 minutes again today. Um, Today we're gonna look at another nonprofit idea. So this came to me. I get a lot of ideas because I see a lot of things that need to be fixed in this country, and I immediately come up with an idea of how it could be done. Of course, I can't do anything. I can only come up with the idea. Because if I dedicate all my time to, running a nonprofit, then I won't be able to come up with all these great ideas. But not only that, I don't have the right connections. I don't know who to get money from in order to develop these nonprofits. So I put the ideas out there, and you folks who are sitting around trying to figure out how you can change the world but don't know how to do it, you can make these nonprofits. So this nonprofit today is called SlumBusters. That's the name of it. Sometimes my nonprofits come up with a cool name, and then I figure out how to run them. And sometimes I just come up with a cool way to run them, but don't have a name for them. Today we have a name, and it's called SlumBusters. And I did figure out how it works. So it works like this. So you'd be at it involves a property, generally a rental property, a slum building, such as the one that I'm at right now. So to give you an example of what spurred this idea, I've been staying as a guest at this one house around the corner near this neighborhood I walk around in and do videos in, and I don't live there. Yes, people who live there, they'll say I live there, but I don't live there. I'm just a guest. I'm just a guest. But the people who do live there are in an interesting situation, and so the house is technically it's a squat, but not in the usual way that we think of squats. So when we think of squats, we think about a situation where a property is abandoned and has been neglected or whatever, and it's just people come in there and they just go in there because there's nobody there to stop them, and then begin to live there. And because they're living there, then they have the right to the property because nobody else was living there. And this is a basic idea behind a squat, and it's a great idea. I fully support squatters' rights 100%. If you have a property and you're not using it, you can't even bother to check up on it every couple months or whatever. Somebody's going to live there for like a year and you didn't know. I mean, come on, dude. It's time to sell that shit or get rid of it or something. So anyway, so that's not what happened at this place. No, the landlord lives right next door. The owner of the house lives next door, and he'll claim that the reason why he let the house turn into a squat is because he's an idiot and doesn't understand the way things work here in the United States. But he's lived here like 25 years. He's a Korean gentleman. He's not. I don't think he's as stupid as he and other people claim he is. But I think he is certainly negligent, and that's what the city of Los Angeles decided. So they put this order. It's called a substandard order on the house because he was not keeping up with repairs. The repairs he was doing were not properly contracted city repairs, which you might be like, oh, big government, blah, blah, blah. But before you go there, just let me say, it's really bad. Part of the reason why I decided I had to do this video was because the other day, I turned on the kitchen sink and the water pressure dropped all of a sudden. Oh God, Facebook Instant Messenger, go away. I'm trying to do a video. So I'm in the kitchen running the water, all of a sudden the water pressure drops. And normally that means that somebody else is doing something, but there is nothing else going on. Nobody else was running water or anything. And I was like, why did the water pressure drop? And then all of a sudden I hear the toilet flushed. And that made the kitchen sink water pressure drop, which, you know, hopefully you can put that together. But anyway, so this guy's got a substandard order on the house, which means that the people who live there don't have to pay rent until he brings the house up to standards. And he's not allowed to charge rent, but he continues to charge people rent, even though nobody has to pay rent. So it creates this whole crazy affair in the legal system, and it's a big mess. People in court all the time, and you know, he's constantly trying to evict people for not paying rent, and then they go to court, and the court's like, well, you can't charge them rent, you know, and so he can't kick them out either. And the only way to get them to leave is if he pays them off, either cut through a settlement or lawsuit or whatever. But basically, he has to pay the moving expenses for each person to move out of the house. It's about $15,000 per person, and he's got it jam-packed with, like, God knows, like 12 people or something. I don't even know. But the numbers are not important. What is important is that, you know, it creates a situation where basically he's not doing the repairs because people aren't paying rent. Oh yeah, that's the other thing. As soon as he gets somebody out, he brings somebody else in, starts charging them rent because they don't know about the substandard order, and then everybody who's there tells them, oh, there's a substandard order, you don't have to pay rent, and the cycle begins again. So anyway, yeah, he can't afford to pay people to leave, and he can't afford to fix the house up because doesn't have rent money, because he's not allowed to charge rent, which he shouldn't be charging rent because the house is substandard. And like in a good, you know, normal capitalist society, he would go bankrupt and somebody else would own the house and they'd fix it up. So how do we do this? Well, you could make this a for-profit company, but I'm really not into the whole for-profit thing at the moment. So we're going to make a non-profit company instead, and the non-profit is called SlumBusters. So the SlumBusters do exactly that. They find properties such as the one I'm at with a substandard order, and they go in and they make the repairs. They just go in and they fix it up, at which point the owner of the house would have to pay for the repairs. That's how the law works and is written. So until the owner the situation stays the same. The renters don't pay the rent until the landlord pays for the repairs, and there is a lien on the property. SlumBusters would then put a lien on the property for the cost of the repairs, and in which case the landlord would have 3 years in which to pay back the cost of the repairs, which would be according to the hourly rates set by SlumBusters, plus interest for delinquency in paying for the repairs. And if he fails to do so within 3 years, then he will lose the property to SlumBusters, and SlumBusters becomes the new owner. Now, this is why I say non-profit instead of for-profit, because generally speaking, if this was a for-profit company doing this, what would they do as soon as they became the owners of the property? Well, they would jack the rent prices up, because now the house is much nicer and worth more money see, this is where all of a sudden, as soon as you start entering money into the mix, it becomes a big problem. Profit money, because that's just money that you take away from the thing being built, is really what it is. You know, somebody whose profit is somebody who's not working, getting money off of a project that they didn't work on that. All right, you want money, go get off your ass and work like everybody else, unless you're retired. In that case, you get a pass. But for reals, so as a nonprofit, or you could do it as a benefit corporation, which is of course a marriage of the profit and the nonprofit. But then again, you'd have to pay a bunch more taxes than if you were a nonprofit. So it's best off that you just keep it a nonprofit. So anyway, so the nonprofit then has a house, and they would only charge the rent within a reasonable margin of what the rent was before they came in and started doing the repairs on the house. So if somebody was paying $800, you know, maybe it's 3 years later and they say, okay, you're going to pay, you know, whatever percentage it is, like a 2% increase, or so, you know, $860, you know, 3 years later. It's not bad. I mean, yes, it's more than 800, but, you know, it's within reasonable, you know. It's not, you know, the building isn't rent controlled per se, but essentially voluntarily rent controlled by SlumBusters. So if anybody out there wants to go ahead and start a SlumBusters, go for it. That's the business model. Enjoy. This has been Ken with another 10 minutes to change the world.